President Biden just announced a new set of travel restrictions that will go into effect on November 8th, 2021. This only applies to non-immigrants, so if you have a green card or if you're applying for a green card, a different set of rules apply to you. The first thing that this rule does is revoke the old COVID-19 country-specific travel bans. So if you're from the EU, you had a difficult time traveling to the US because you had to spend 2 weeks in a third country, or if you were coming from South Africa or India or Brazil, all of these countries, among a few others, had specific travel bans for their country related to COVID-19 restrictions. Now, those bans are no longer in place, and a new set of bans has been instituted. The new rule generally states that you can't visit the United States as a non-immigrant if you haven't been vaccinated against COVID-19. Now, there are a few exceptions to this rule, which I'll go over here in this video. It's first important to note which visas this actually affects. The most common visas that this would affect are B visas, people coming on vacation as tourists or to visit family members. It affects B1 visas, which are business visitors. It would also affect L1, L2 visas, also intercompany transferees. It would affect F1 student visas as well as their family members, and E2 visas. These are the four most common visas that it would affect, but generally any non-immigrant visa that's not spelled out in the exceptions would be affected by this new travel ban. Again, if you are a green card holder or you have just successfully applied for a green card and you're traveling to the US on that new visa, these restrictions don't apply to you. There are a different set of requirements that apply to you. Now, you may be exempted from the vaccine requirement if you fall under one of the following categories: individuals traveling as crew members of airlines, people entering the US on a C visa, also known as a transit visa, people entering the US on an A, G, or NATO visa, any kind of diplomatic visa, people traveling for official UN business, people who the CDC determines are not an appropriate age to receive the vaccine, people participating in a COVID-19 vaccine clinical trial, someone who receives an exemption from the CDC for other humanitarian or emergency reasons, people coming from countries where the COVID vaccine has limited availability, but this exception does not apply to people wanting to travel on a B visa. So if you're coming from a country where you have a difficult time getting the vaccine because it's not readily available, you still wouldn't be able to use this exception to travel on a B visa, whether as a visitor for pleasure or a business visitor. You're also exempted if you, your spouse, or your child are a member of the US military, if you're traveling as a C crew member on a C1 or a D visa, or if you meet a national interest exception. If you meet one of the exceptions I outlined above, there's still a few things you need to do in order to be able to travel to the United States without the vaccine. First, you need a negative COVID test before you depart for the United States. Second, you need to take precautions while traveling as determined by the CDC, which will include things like wearing a face mask, distancing, etc. Third, you need to provide proof that you have arranged for a post-arrival COVID test, so you need to get a test after you land in the United States, and you need to show proof that you have arranged for that test before you depart. Fourth, you need to prove that you have made arrangements for quarantine after you have arrived to the United States. And fifth, you need to agree to become vaccinated against COVID within 60 days of arriving to the US, and then provide proof that you actually have been vaccinated within that 60-day period. That is, unless your stay is brief, you are not of an appropriate age to get vaccinated, you are participating in a COVID-19 vaccine clinical trial, or it's not medically appropriate for you to get vaccinated per the CDC. Now, these rules are changing quickly, so if you're unsure if you're in compliance, or if you're unsure if you meet an exception, or if you're unsure of how to plan your travel, if you do feel you meet an exception, reach out to us and set up a consultation, and we'll get you squared away. Thank you.